All right, guys, we are freshly back out of the theater. First thoughts, let's address Robert Pattinson as Batman. I said earlier that I thought Ben Affleck was my favorite Batman. He still is my favorite Batman, but Pattinson definitely has solidified his number 2 spot for me. And if you've never seen Robert Pattinson's movies before, other than Twilight, I mean, he's a legit actor. He's been in The Rover, High Times, I think Cherry, or maybe not Cherry, The Devil, something like that Netflix movie.
Yeah, the Netflix movie. He was excellent.
So he's a legit, fantastic actor, and he's, I would say maybe he's a little, not one-notey here, because he's really just brooding through the whole thing.
Yeah. They had him very, he would have been an excellent Crow, but they did have him, he was supposed to be emotionless.
Yeah.
Even as Bruce Wayne, that was the whole, and he played that well.
Yeah.
He had good presence for such a thin guy. I thought he looked the part. I mean,
yeah, he did look the part. I mean, this is only year 2 of him being Batman, so whereas like Affleck is like retirement age Batman, he's real slick. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times in this movie where he's just kind of just bumbling through being Batman.
He makes like several mistakes. He's like, whoa, might have messed that up.
Even when he's doing detective work, making mistakes. He's doing slick Batman stuff, making mistakes. He's knocking on front doors, going into buildings.
Yeah.
So that's very un-Batman-like, but I guess very kind of like newbie-like. So, I mean, I get it, year 2. He's not that refined, like, slick Batman that we all know.
But they put it in such a real-world context. I mean, it was everything from, we gotta talk about the car, but the gadgets, the way he moved, you can tell he still could get hurt. It goes back to that very human Batman. But like you mentioned, as we were driving here, Shane's biggest complaint about the Christian Bale Batman was the lack of detective work. Mm-hmm. This movie goes into like Condemned, the video game. It goes into Seven. It's all detective, not just because of the Riddler, but it was a much different pace than any other Batman. It didn't even feel like a Batman movie a lot of the time.
Yeah, this was like 7 / maybe a season of True Detective.
With it definitely had 7, True Detective. It had Saw.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of Saw in there. But for me, whatever expectations you have going in, almost got to wash the Batman thought process out, because it doesn't really fit in to. It felt like a series. It's long. It's long. I mean, it's dark.
I've heard people say that it did feel long. Other people were like, it's not long. But I think towards the third act, maybe towards this end of the second act, I was like, oh, this is the end of the movie, and I forgot the Riddler was even in the movie, because they wrapped up like another subplot, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, we have like another maybe like 30 minutes to go.
Yeah. But you know what's funny? In the beginning of the film felt almost too small. Like the story was going to be way too simple, right? Yeah. I mean, it introduced characters real quick. You're like, oh, you're talking about Falcone and the mob bosses that we all know. I was like, wow, this movie's kind of small in scale. And then it just kind of keeps opening up. And I thought it was excellent. I just don't know what... It just didn't fit into any particular genre. It was really hard to say, hey, if you go see that, this is going to feel like this movie. We just named 3 films. But as a Batman movie, it just really felt like a whole new... Did not feel like a superhero movie at all, at least to me.
Yeah, definitely not a superhero movie. Like I said, more like just like a crime thriller drama, almost, with your favorite comic book Batman villains and heroes in it. And back to Pattinson. Since it is year 2, I did feel like, since he is kind of the slimmest Batman we've got, the youngest Batman, I didn't always feel like he was imposing. Like Affleck was like brooding. Like Affleck was brooding and imposing. Yeah. Like I didn't feel like he was that much of a threat to a lot of the bad guys, or even when he was like locked up in the cell with all the cops.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it was, and that was weird. Really, I mean, I know we're not in spoiler territory, but in that way, in the other Batman movies, he kind of just shows up and then he bounces out. In this, he's like. Yeah. He's literally sitting in the room with a bunch of cops, and he's wearing his costume like, hi. So it was really bizarre, the places they found him in. He was found in. The situations he was in were very un-Batman-like. One of the opening scenes when he does kind of, roll in. I thought that he had some of that imposing, but I think they shot it that way on purpose to kind of make it look like he wasn't just appearing places. Like the real Batman, you turn around, he's there, then he's gone. Yeah. You see him actually like walking in.
Yeah, this is like, I guess, because he is so young, he's, second year doing it, maybe he just doesn't know how to just sneak into places yet or something.
Yeah,
like
he was not sneaky.
He's not sneaky at all.
Sneaky, I mean.
But I loved his performance. Selena Kyle, Zoe Kravitz, I think she killed it too. She was, slick, she was sexy, she was tough. She looked the part. I think great acting from like everybody across the board.
Excellent cast. I mean, people that came, Skarsgård from Ant-Man.
Yeah, he showed up.
He was in there. It was good to see John Turturro in a serious role for a while. It's been a long time since we've seen him in something like that. And I'll say about the Selena Kyle character, I think she had shown up so early. For me, I was like, oh man, give me some more Batman before you bring this in. But the way they evolved it was pretty cool, because you don't want it to. I think in a lot of movies we have now, it's not the main character's movie anymore, and they didn't do that at all here. It felt like they were going to do that by introducing her so early. Mm-hmm. I even like bumped into Shane, like, oh, here we go. It's already a Catwoman movie, and she's my favorite Catwoman, other than like Michelle Pfeiffer looking amazing back then. But the way they had her as just. Her style was good. It was definitely excellent the way they put it in there.
There's I think the Catwoman music also a little bit like the music from Batman 2. Batman.
Yep. Yep.
There's like that violin kind of melody at the background. I think it's a violin, but that's in there as well. There's also Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, cat on top of the bat moment.
Yep. They did have that, and I thought the Penguin character, that's Colin Farrell, isn't it?
Yeah, Colin Farrell.
I mean, they were able. I was a little nervous about having those characters in it, even in the show Gotham. They can turn very cartoony. Didn't happen here. Yeah. I mean, the Riddler.
He does give a little bit of levity to the movie. The Penguin did.
He had like De Niro, Al Capone kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Untouchables vibe.
First off, the movie's called The Batman. And I think every time you've got to see Robert Pattinson out of the mask is pretty much every time he's in the trailer. So every time you see him not in the mask in the trailer, it's pretty much all the footage that's in this movie. Yeah. Like 98% of the time he's Batman. Yeah. And that's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I mean, they gave you enough. I think all the Batman, even Ben Affleck, they all had that little bit of damage. Yeah. They were damaged. He was very raw, and he was clearly a dude with mad issues.
Yeah, he's got serious issues.
He's got serious issues, which I thought was really cool. And the Alfred relationship is different than it's ever been. And I loved how even where the cave is located and that stuff was all tangible, real raw. Like you think that maybe he was working on it himself. The technology was real cool, but it wasn't off the charts.
Yeah, it was
unbelievable.
I mean, I think that was the only like fantasy element was the one tech he had there, and then maybe the part in the trailer where he jumps off the building. That was
there was a part. It's not where he jumps off the building, but there's this scene where he's like, all right, I guess I'm going down.
He runs out, he stops, he's like, whoa.
He looks so scared. He's like, and it looks like a YouTube video and people are going down mountains. It was like, so some of the camera stuff was pretty awesome.
That was like, oh my God, this guy's not Batman.
It was like,
you're not Batman.
Oh my God. So it was, and I thought that was cool. I thought a lot of that was cool. He was getting hit a lot. Yeah, I agree. He wasn't super imposing. He's not a big guy anyway.
Yeah.
But you can see where his suit, it's like it looks like he had pieces of metal that he like screwed in. So it looked like a real suit. He was wearing like Dickie work boots.
Yeah.
Which is I think made him look tall. He's not a big guy. And to your point, as Bruce Wayne, he wasn't a suave Bruce Wayne, which every other Bruce Wayne's been a really suave kind of ladies' man. He was clearly like an emo, beat up Bruce Wayne, but
he was just, I mean, hold on. Let's talk about Bruce Wayne really quick. He was like a spoiled brat in this movie, I felt, especially towards Alfred.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just that he was, the way it goes about that was he was a very damaged kid that grew up and didn't appreciate the one guy that was there for him. And I think we all took that as, all right. But it seemed like he was so damaged he couldn't even realize, and Batman's always been a victim who's, he really went that way with this. But I thought that it didn't have a lot of cast. But, usually you're used to Alfred being this, like, whimsical guy, and then you have Bruce Wayne at the parties and cocktail parties. You didn't have that at all. The city, and if you want to go into the city, the way the movie was shot, the way Gotham was shot, the cinematography I thought was excellent.
Yeah.
As far as, like, kind of like Seven, where Seven, you never knew where you were. But in this, you're like, wow, okay, this area looks new. It looks really old. It didn't have that wonky Gotham.
This reminded me a little bit in Batman Begins of the Narrows.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The whole movie looked like that. The same color palette, too. It was like golds and blacks, some reds, oranges. Yeah. Pretty much the entire movie's like that.
But unlike the Narrows, this looked like a real place. Yeah. As far as you can see the technology.
It was like Times Square. Just more screens.
Yeah. And even the parts in the cities they end up later reminds you of parts in New York that are just abandoned big. Yeah. But you can tell that they did that and then they added their own stuff to it. For me, it goes from being a very small, intimate kind of detective film by I would say the third act, but by the ninth act, it's like a bombastic, like, whoa, okay.
And there's a lot of detective work in here. Like, if this was Christian Bale's Batman, he would have no idea what he's doing.
He'd be like, where is he? Go ahead.
Riddler, real quick. Talk about the Riddler.
I thought that again, it was. I'm telling you, when you go into a movie like this, it's a problem with these kinds of films. Is I've got the Riddler from the cartoons, so I'm already kind of picturing how he is. At first, it was like, again, very much like the movie Saw. So I think it's hard not to be a little bit like, but. I thought it was well done. There's a lot of kind of winks and nods to influencing, which is ironic for us to be watching the movie. And, but I thought he was, again, not being too cartoony. I thought it was a good villain.
Yeah, he's almost kind of like real passive, kind of like Kevin Spacey's character was in Seven.
Yeah.
Kind of quiet, reserved guy. I mean, he looked pasty like Kevin Spacey was as well. I think the ending was even similar in some respects, except for the whole, head in the box thing.
It's definitely borrowed from a lot of films. I've just never seen them mashed together like this.
Let's talk about the action really quick. Action-wise, I thought action was great. I still don't think there's any scene in this movie that tops the Batman warehouse scene.
For the impact with the crates and all that?
With the crates and him just being nasty, handling people. I think there's definitely some good action stuff in it. Like, he's definitely wrecking dudes, some of the bad dudes in it. But as far as just being like, I don't know, man, just really imposing, I felt like he just didn't have that imposing nature, especially during the action scenes. I mean, he's still badass, don't get me wrong. But I felt like, maybe because it's only in year 2, I just felt like the action, nobody does action quite like Snyder does. But this still was very good. I just felt it was a little bit short of what we got with Snyder and Batman. Yeah,
it was definitely built realistically. Yeah. I mean, there's times when he's fighting. It was very similar to that scene with Eric Roberts and was that the Dark Knight with the Joker? Yeah. When he's in the club, he's like, "Why would I want to hear what you have to say to that girl?" Yeah. There was a couple scenes that were very much like that. Definitely brought a little bit of John Wick in there, but it was definitely looks like he was in a bar fighting. You wouldn't say that's a kung fu guy or a martial artist. So I think they kept that very realistic, and that goes with the action throughout. Even the car chases, there wasn't a lot of what you would see with Zack Snyder where everything was pretty tangible, and I think because of that, they didn't let those fight scenes or action scenes ever become something that's not able to get done.
Yeah, I felt like the fight scenes in Nolan's movies would have looked like this movie if he knew how to not cut in so close and make it so choppy.
Good point. Yeah.
This is the same fight stuff that should have been in Nolan's movies, which I'm sure was, but you just didn't know what was happening.
Yeah. Well, it was the same movie where he does, he kind of blocks and then he pulls down. Yeah. But the shots later on towards the end, you're just like, but there were some moments where, I mean, there's a lot of getting shot in this. Like, my boy's not too agile. So it had a little bit of that iron giant thing where he's kind of moved. Like, he wasn't very graceful either. I thought that even though he wasn't physically imposing, you could see he couldn't move well, in the equipment. But I think the distracting thing we both had within theaters now, they don't get as dark as they should. There's still some ambient light, so
ours was it's weird.
It was like it almost had like blooming in the corners,
but the center was really dark.
But the center was super dark. So I think at home, With inky blacks, it'll be amazing. I don't think it was like 7 where it was muddy and you couldn't see, but I think that blur effect, it might be hard for some of you guys.
The audio in the movie, damn, what a good audio, especially the Batmobile.
Yeah.
It was like he turned on a jet turbine engine mixed with like a Mustang or something. It was just like nasty.
It had that Mad Max, but like a lot of audio tracks, you know,
Did he stall it?
Yeah, I thought in the beginning he
He
was like, car. What? It had a Knight Rider.
This is the part where he shoots the Batarang, or the bat grapple, and it zips right past your head. And this is a big theater, and it felt like it was in your house. Like it's kind of intimate, but yet very, very clearly placed right behind your head. It's
absolutely.
Like, choppers overhead, there's rain, ambiance, city. I mean, it's all really clean sounding, and I'm sure it's going to sound amazing at the house as well.
We know this thing, too, what we loved. And this is my first movie with Shane in the movies. You know you get it, but there was a scene where they're like banging on the door, the cops, and it did feel like it was up the stairs and in the corner of the theater. And I know he was watching because I was just like, the way it didn't feel like channel to channel. It really understands why that sound. And then the times the bass was so heavy, it was moving the seats. And I love how we talk about this with like sound bars at home. They hit with everything because it's not discreet. This was discreet. I mean, you felt like they wanted you to feel this, but not that. The doors, the punches. I thought it was one of the best since probably Blade Runner. Impactful, but not overly like Blade Runner never stops.
Yeah.
But I thought it was in the rain and when you're walking into an environment, amazing.
Anyways, guys, that's just our quick thoughts on Batman, the Batman. Quick out of the theater. Have you guys seen it? What'd you guys think? Leave a comment down below and let us know.
Would you recommend it right now, though?
Absolutely. Definitely go watch it.
It's a must-see. Definitely a must-see.
Anyways, like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.